we're in this like cool industry that if our competitors are winning, everybody wins because they keep the internet safe. We keep the internet safe. We think we're better, but it doesn't really matter, right? So if they're doing their job correctly, even though it's not as good as us, it's still amazing for the world. We're pushing a new algorithm to production. Hey, we made the world safer, and we can actually see that. So this is really inspiring to a lot of people. It's like, love your competitors.
Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook Podcast, where we share inspiring startup stories with practical takeaways for you, the listener. Today's guest is Noam Schwartz, who's the founder and CEO of ActiveFence. They've raised $100 million for their software, which helps keep the internet safe. They've got an A-list client base with some of the biggest technology companies in the world. Noam previously led TapDog, which was acquired by the internet giant SimilarWeb, and he continued to work there as the VP of Business and Corporate Development. ActiveFence's growth since being founded in 2018 is remarkable, and Noam has an interesting way of looking at competition, because in his market, if his competitors win, then he wins too. Welcome to Entrepreneur's Handbook. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's awesome to be here.
So, ActiveFence has been doing amazingly in the last few years, but what I really want to understand is, where did you get started? What brought you into the world of entrepreneurship in the first place?
So I'm doing this for quite some time, over 12 years, I believe. ActiveFence started in 2018, which is an incredible story of its own, I believe. But I actually started around 2010, give or take. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, to start my own business. I actually started my first pretend business when I was in the third grade, selling friendship bracelets that I made in my grandma's house, which was like a lot of fun. And then I had a band, and then I had my a music studio. It's a business, not really in tech, but that working in the studio kind of like drew me a lot into being like a more serious entrepreneur. And after I ended my army service, so me and one of the friends that I met there, we started our first company that wasn't very successful, but we raised some money for it. We learned a lot, and we pivoted, and then we had like a better company that was eventually sold to an Israeli company called SimilarWeb that recently went IPO. And in SimilarWeb, I learned a lot of the things that I didn't learn starting out on my own. A lot of the sales operations and how to do like marketing seriously, and branding, and scaling a company. And after that, I started ActiveFence, and here we are.
So I want to go back to the company which was bought out, because that's a process that many people are looking to do in their businesses. What was that like for you? Because obviously, if you started a business yourself, you're very invested in it, you love the idea. Was it something which you were looking for a buyer for it? Or was it that the offer came along and you just thought?
Yeah, it was a coincidence. We were in Silicon Valley in an accelerator program, me and the founding team. It was like in the Silicon Valley TV show. We were living in this like house all together, same room. We went back to Israel, kind of like I needed to raise money, and I wanted to go to Israeli VCs back then, and the folks wanted to take some break, and we ended up meeting that company. We really hit it off. We were kind of like completing each other's sentences. We had the same vision. We believed in their goal. The deal was interesting, and we ended up joining. But that was a coincidence. It was luck. We were just ready to make the jump, take the leap. We knew what we wanted to do. We knew what's our potential, and I'm very happy that we did that. That was like the right call.
Yeah, and you said about their luck, and I think so often people forget that luck is such a big factor in everything here, because one of the things about being in the startup world is the people you meet, and they can have such a big influence on what happens with you. Did you have anybody that you met right early on that really inspired you to get going? Because you said you had to learn everything by yourself at the beginning. Did you take on mentors, or was it very much you and your friend starting a business and seeing what happened?
I was inspired by so many people throughout the years that influenced my journey without them knowing, and I'm still inspired by some of those same people, but also like different people, the people that I really admired in the early days. Some of them are my friends now, and I'm admiring other people that that know other stuff. Like I used to see like small companies, like CEOs of what I experienced as a tiny companies, but I was like, wow, they're so great. How did they make it happen? How did they raise like that amount of money? How did they hire those superstars, partners, and the teams? How did they build those products? And now it's kind of like, well, I know how to do that. Now I'm looking to the CEOs of the public companies of how they're navigating the IPO, how they navigating Wall Street, how they're navigating the changing markets and the huge amounts of investors, how they're navigating the predictability of the business that is required from a public company, how they're imagining and entering new markets, thinking in tens of billions and not in tens of millions, and those are the people that I'm kind of like looking up to now. But generally speaking, and also correlating it to luck, when just like a cool story, when I had an idea of a company, which was really stupid idea, like looking back to it, it was in the early age of social and mobile and location. There was like a buzzword then, and it was really bad. But I knew that I should raise some money, and I didn't really know how to do that. I didn't even know what a VC is. I looked for the term angel investors in Google, and I saw a list, and I just like started reaching out to them, and literally I reached out to the first person on the list on Facebook and said, "Hey, my name is Noam. I have this idea. I would love to talk." And he ridiculously enough answered and said, okay, cool, let's talk, let's meet." And he ended up investing after we met up. It was great. He invested. We did a round led by him. He's the most prominent and for me personally inspiring, but also is the most known and prominent angel investors in Israel. And his mentorship and trust and the relationship that we had inspired me to this day, because he invested and then invested again and again, and then he joined the board of the company that acquired us, and then he invested in my new company, and still today he just introduced me to a customer 2 weeks ago. And he as a person is also like, he's not just like an amazing operator, a great entrepreneur, amazing investor, and like a family person that I really appreciate and know how to have fun. He's kind of like my role model. I want to be him when I grow up. I was so lucky to meet him, and I think I wasn't really prepared to know what to do with such a person. Sometimes luck is a huge portion, but like sometimes you need to make your own luck. Kind of like I reached out to him, and that like I made my own luck. But sometimes you also need to prepare yourself, so when you meet something by coincidence and you get lucky, you actually know how to leverage that. So being actually super versed in the topic and the concept that you're trying to do. So when something good is happening to you, you can take it like in two hands. Like another example is about 1 year into starting the company, I went to South by Southwest, which is a big festival in Austin that all of the meaningful tech companies went there, and we went there to build a pipeline and to find some customers. And on the street, I met a gentleman called Eric Ries. Now, Eric Ries is the creator of the Lean Startup movement. He's just incredible. He wrote so many of the concepts. Not just him. Like he built up like other folks, but he kind of like articulated so many of the concepts that are obvious today. And some of his students build companies that are now public companies. And I just met him on the street, and I was like, "Hey, I know you. I read everything you wrote, and I literally read everything he wrote because before I founded the company, I had to learn about founding companies, and that was literally the only resource that we had back then. And my ability to really complete his sentences led him to help me with introductions and hey, my friend Noam, and then he introduced me to someone that became my customer. So I got lucky, but I was kind of like ready for this luck.
Yeah, and it's like you said there, there's two different people you met there, and one you weren't prepared for and one you were. And both of them worked out in the end. And I think one of the big lessons for people listening is sometimes you've just got to try. If you don't try to ask somebody, you don't know if they're going to reject you. What's the worst that can happen is they don't talk to you. But if you don't ask them, they're not going to talk to you anyway.
No, that's true. That's so true. It's always, I think it was like a theme in my life that every time I saw someone that I admire or I wanted to talk with, I just went and talked with that person. Like if it was like a musician while I grew up, said like, hey, I'll reach out. I'll send like it was like a real envelope sometimes, or an email to one of my favorite authors or entrepreneurs. The worst thing that could happen, they won't answer. I won't get offended. I have a very short memory for bad experiences. But if they answer, that's amazing. It's also builds up your willingness to keep doing that over and over again. And then they introduce you to people and you get and you learn from them and you have like meaningful conversations or sometimes even meaningful relationships for years to come. So yeah, it's like always there's no cost in trying to do things like that.
Even though you had the angel investor on board for your first company, was there any hard lessons you learned the hard way where even though you had the mentorship, you said like it didn't work out the first company? What were the lessons you took from that failure in a way?
So many. From the most basic things of, and this is like so important for new entrepreneurs, and it's basic, but it's very hard to understand it in a very deep way. It's the combination of understanding your market and validating your idea with that market, which is probably something that people who came to the podcast said every time, and you can read it everywhere. But it's still a very challenging thing for an entrepreneur or someone with an idea to actually do because it seems like how can I validate this idea without raising the money and going to the market and building the thing at first? Or how can I know how big is the market if I didn't start? And this is kind of like a chicken and egg problem. And by telling yourself it's a chicken and egg problem, you're actually making a decision for yourself to start and see what happens. And then you take a bet on your life, which is a big bet for most people. Some people can take a punch, some people can take several punches, some people can't take a punch. And this is also what I'm telling people that I meet or people that ask for an advice or even like my family members that are asking me that if you have an idea, be 100% sure or at least have like a good theory, like who is that person that is going to buy your product and for how much and why and how many of them are there outside and validate that in any way that you possibly can. It's like and there's so many ways to validate things, especially today with in the no code, low code era that building an application is you don't need a developer. Even for distribution, you don't need a developer. Even for let's say a low scaling assignments, you don't really need a developer. You just need to have the patience and the ability to invest some time into that and to have the guts of actually selling it to someone and have that like ability to take money for your creation. Ask the right questions because without that, the chances of success are meaningfully low than just going out and hoping that something will happen. And I think the biggest mistake that we did in the previous company is that We didn't do any of that. We knew that we should, but we thought, hey, how can I know? It's like without building the product, we can't really test it with the market. And it was a B2C product, so it's even harder. And we didn't do that, and we crashed and burned. And we actually did that in the second company, but not enough. We built the product and we tested it with a few customers, and they actually said, "Hey, this is incredible. Let's we want to buy this." But they didn't really buy it because they didn't have the budget that was needed for it. They wanted it, but I wanted them to pay $100,000 for a license. They said, "Well, we have five." And five didn't really justify the amounts of individual companies that can buy something like that. So it wasn't like a big business. And when we started ActiveFence, it was very different. It was very we built the prototype, and we worked on that for a while, and we had customers, and we were very sure in that the market is there. The market is huge. Our product is needed by the people who would buy it in the market, and they can pay enough money for it to justify the model, and we know how to build off that. So I couldn't do ActiveFence without learning all of the lessons that I learned in the previous companies the hard way. Like, it's one thing. Like, another lesson is that how important it is to be close to your market. And in the first company, that was so long ago. It was before Facebook introduced the Facebook Connect. It was before Facebook. I don't know if you remember in the early days of Farmville. Like, all of a sudden, everything you did online was published automatically on Facebook. And one day it just happened. Like, a song you heard on Spotify, something you saw on YouTube. It was just automatically published on Facebook because you connected your identity with Facebook, and people just like use their API everywhere. And but the day that this feature was announced, our competitors grew like 1,000% because they were in the beta group of this API that really changed the way user acquisition is being done online. Now, we were in Israel, they were in Silicon Valley. So they actually got the invitation, which we didn't. And on that day, our user base like dropped, and their user base like increased, and it was like downhill from there. And it would never happen if we were actually where everything is happening. Like, so as a B2C company, you want to, like, your customers can be everywhere, but your market, your partners, the hardcore users, they were in Silicon Valley, and we weren't there. We took a plane and went there and moved there a few months later, but that was too late. That's like another big lesson. And there's like so many. I'm learning new stuff every day. Like, if I knew last year what I know today, I was in a very different place. And I'm sure that I would say this next year and next decade. And like, all I can do is teach my kids what what I learned.
It seemed like you really enjoyed working with SimilarWeb. What then was the reason behind creating ActiveFence? What inspired you? Where did the idea come from?
So, like, ActiveFence, I really enjoy SimilarWeb. It's a terrific company and terrific people, and I think their success is a testament for that. Um, and and ActiveFence was founded in 2018, but actually the idea started in 2015. So in 2015, my daughter was born, but she was born super early. She was born like an ultra preemie, like a week 26. This is like a very small baby. Like less than 2 pounds baby for people who are listening from the US, and it's 750 grams for fellow Europeans. It's tiny. She's fine now, but I was just starting. I was just moved. I moved to the US that day and that time, and I was starting like a new position, and I had to stay in the hospital, and I had a lot of time in my hands, And one of the things that I started to do is bring my laptop to the hospital and just like work. And one of the things that I did was reviewing all kinds of links and public URLs that were related to what I did. And one of the things that I came across is a lot of pedophile content hosted on one of the largest file sharing platforms in the world. And I was shocked. It was the first time I ever saw anything like it. And you know, this contrast between like the babies in front of you and what you're just seeing was enough to, you know, I snapped. And I sent an email to the CEO of that company that I knew from previous from being in Silicon Valley, and I asked him what's going on. Like, I know you, I know the company, I know the culture. This cannot happen. How did you let this happen? And he answered after a few minutes and said, "Thank you so much for reporting it. We're taking care of this right away." And he also CC'd the team, that his trust and safety team that is supposed to deal with those things. And between the lines, I understood that they didn't really have anything to do. They used very basic classifiers, and anything beyond that was out of their reach. There wasn't the technology for it. And the idea of doing proactive content detection and creating an engine of making sure that your content, you can really keep the safety and the trust of your users started being created. But it was too soon. I was focused on my daughter. I was focused on my work. I was focused like on other things. And then in 2016, like a year later, the whole era of disinformation started with the U.S. election and the report of the Intelligence Committee of the U.S. Senate, and we all saw what happens after that, and the attention that it got from the media, from the public, from tech companies. And I thought, hey, this disinformation wave, it's happening in the same ways. Like, I think I know how to stop it, how to contribute to the detection of it, but it was again too soon. And in 2017, when ISIS and Al Qaeda started really bombard the social networks and the file hosting services and the video streaming, it was like, okay, I got it. I know I got the commonalities. I got like enough hints from the universe. Let's go. I have an idea. And me and like my co-founders today, we started talking about that, and we ended up building a prototype that is based on our core technology. We sold it to a few customers, and here we are. But this is how the company was started, and the rapid growth that we experienced since having this idea to the 260 people that we are today across like 10 different countries really happened like almost in a heartbeat. Like it feels like yesterday that I had this idea, and it took me a while to understand that, but it's really exciting to see the coincidence and the luck that led us to this point.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm happy that your daughter's safe now and she's happy and well. And I think that's a really inspiring story because what ActiveFence does is such an important function for everybody, right? Because if it's protecting all of us, so many of us are on the web now, and where there's people who are mistreated and that's going online, and there's people who are subject to these disinformation campaigns. And it's something that we're all vulnerable to, right? Like, I know I'm vulnerable to it, and I hope because I'm a bit more tech savvy than other people, I know how to get out of that. But like you said, there's so many people who they don't know the difference. They don't know how to be able to tell when they're going down the wrong path or websites are safe or not safe. And like you said, it's just, do you think that because what ActiveFence does and the mission behind it is so world changing, that's part of the reason why you've grown so fast, because everyone's just a bit more motivated and it makes a difference to how you get customers and everything like that? Because it's a mission that people believe in.
We're blessed almost to have investors and customers and employees and partners from every type of industry and vendors and providers that are sharing the same vision and mission, and they're all part of this amazing story. And what we do eventually is we help our customers, which are online platforms, web platforms, mostly B2C, to keep their users safe and to build the environments and the communities that they deserve in order to make sure that their business can grow, but because it's the right thing to do. Like, yeah, when you're playing a game, you want your kid to feel safe. You want to feel safe. You want to trust the social network that you're reading content on, discovering content on. You don't want to come across pedophile content or Nazi content or terrorist content or even just like spam and profanity and bullying and everything around that. And but when you're thinking about what we do is we try to make people safe. We will try to give them the sense of safety and security that people are taking into people are taking for granted in the physical world. You go down the street, you're not expected to be run down by a vehicle. You don't expect to get like slapped, or you don't expect to get like called by with like calling names. You have this expectations of security, and rightly so. This is why we have norms, rules, and law enforcement agencies. But online, it's not necessarily the case. And people who understand that the distinction between the online and offline world is no longer there. Now, it's like when we were kids, we've been asked, "Hey, what you're doing this afternoon?" And saying, "I'm online. I'm going online. I'm like surfing the web." It's like I'm chatting. It was like an activity, and it's not the case anymore. It's everywhere. This is what we do. So, but the distinction regarding trust and safety is still happening. There's the trust and safety in the physical world, which is like, of course, it's very important, and there's the trust and safety in the online world, which is not that obvious. People who saw the dangers that and the things that can happen are really motivated and are really inspired by what we do. And it's not just us. It's like every company in safety tech and every company in trust and safety. We had that saying in SimilarWeb, but it's also relevant for me right now. It's like love your competitors. We're in this like cool industry that if our competitors are winning, everybody wins because they keep the internet safe. We keep the internet safe. We think we're better, but it doesn't really matter, right? It's like they helped their customers make themselves like slightly better. So if they're doing their job correctly, even though it's not as good as us, it's still amazing for the world. So it's this type of industry. It's not like a cutthroat industry that winner takes all, a zero sum game. We're in this because we want to make the world safer. And we're actually seeing the effect of our actions. Like we're pushing a new algorithm to production. Hey, we made the world safer. And we can actually see that. So this is really inspiring to a lot of people. And all of our investors, all of our employees, uh, they all share the same line of thought. We're very aligned, and this mission is very, let's say, the team is the cohesiveness of the team across the mission and what we're trying to do is very clear, and I'm really really proud and honored to be part of that.
How did you choose your co-founders at the beginning? Because obviously you're working for SimilarWeb at the time, and I imagine there's lots of people when you told them about this mission, they would have been interested in coming on board. So what skills were you looking for, and how did you build that founding team that's given you the foundation for what you've come?
So again, I was very lucky because it wasn't my first company. So my first so what so my previous co-founder that also went with me to SimilarWeb, it was kind of like, and we built tons of things like for all the years, and we're like very good friends. He's like a brother to me. He's the godfather of my kids. So it was obvious that we'll do it together. And we also met this amazing developer, inspiring human being, kind heart person in SimilarWeb that used to be the VP R&D there. That we also knew that we want to do things together at some point. So when it was time, he was my first call. So this was like also easy. So I had like a product person that is like very detail oriented and so smart, and I had like a CTO, and like finding a CTO is like probably the most hard part when you're starting out. Even though it's not as hard today as it used to be. And I also had a family member that brought like some of the opportunities, and he and I met for like another family member. So it was also a coincidence because I wouldn't start it without him, and everything kind of like just like clicked. And it was very unlikely that this combination will happen at the right timing, at the right place. I was living in New York. They all were living in Israel. Again, like all the stars got aligned in the same place, and we got the show off the road. But I think the meaningful thing here is that we all were ready, and we were all kind of like prepared to this moment our entire life. It's like my partners built meaningful things and did really well in the past and learned a lot of hard lessons. And the same goes to me. The same goes to all of my co-founders and the early employees, which are exactly like co-founders, and our investors that are exactly like co-founders. We're also This is like the type of people that we want to work with. For better and for worse, we like to work with friends or people that can become our friends. So all of a sudden, you find yourself in this circle that everybody you know are working with you, which is, it's like it's not for everybody. I like it, but this is how I met them.
And your previous company, before it was bought out by SimilarWeb, how much did it scale? So was this a new experience with ActiveFence and how big it's grown? And did you have any problems with that or lessons you learned along the way where you went from a small founding team in 2018 to now a 260-person company today?
Yeah, no. So the previous company didn't really scale. It was like a founding team and then some. So I didn't know what I'm doing, and I was kind of like it was on the job training, and it's very different today. Like today, we grew so fast in this like insane phase, and the reason that we were able to grow is because we hired people that knew what to do, and B, we had like great investors to mentor us and guide us and help us not fall in like all kinds of like obvious pitfalls. And I think there's more knowledge today. It's like the people that I ask for advice today are people who are doing the same thing or did the same thing, or they used to do those things, and things that are so obvious, things around the capacity of your salespeople, and how much money you need to raise, and how to approach a new market, and things that today are obvious to us were not obvious at all. Like when we were getting started with the previous company, I didn't even know what to ask. It's like, what kind of guidance should I ask for my mentors? So, things like this podcast and other resources are a gold mine for the next. I don't know if this specific episode. I don't know how much I can teach new folks, but it's a gold mine for people that are starting out. Everybody's like listening to podcasts. There's so many books out there. There's so many articles. There's so many ways to learn. There's much more money that can finance things. There's like companies that you can build your entire company on. I didn't have all of that. I had like basically Eric Ries. So I'm sure I would do way less mistakes if I would start like a new thing right now.
What other books you'd recommend? You mentioned there books and podcasts that you listen to and you've read. What books have you think have helped you a lot? Obviously, Lean Startup.
Yeah. So the Lean Startup. There's so many. Like I think the book that I would recommend, like Noam of 5 years ago to read. It's like a book called The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon. Actually, I have it right here. This one. It is an amazing, amazing book. There's no audible version, which makes it irrelevant for like 99% of the people now. But this is I bought 50 copies of that, and I spread it in every office that we have worldwide, because it really gives you the theory of how to sell to the enterprise and what to do, what not to do, which is amazing. I think also a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss about negotiation. It's not about tech, but it gives you so much. I think it gives you more knowledge about something called active listening, which is super relevant when you're selling, when you're interviewing candidates, when you're negotiating terms with a customer or with an investor. It's kind of like know what to pay attention to and how to be like a better listener. It's not about winning a negotiation. It's about really getting to the essence of that. And I can go on and on, but like I think this is like skills that everybody needs, and really, really, there are also two very practical books. It's like it's not the 5 ways to win something. It's not that thing. It's like you read those books and you're a different person later because you get actionable skills that you can apply immediately, and the ROI on those things is incredible. But I just recommend spend almost every free moment reading something, listening to something, even if it's like 5 or 10 minutes in the gym on the way to somewhere. Like invest in that. Like less Netflix, more more audible.
And for ActiveFence, what's the dream now? So you've been building up significantly in the last few years. Where do you want to take it, and what are your ambitions for the company?
So for the next, I don't know, for the foreseeable future, for like short term, we want to work with every B2C company, with every company with a meaningful user base and online footprint, and help them make their users safer. So if it's every game, every marketplace, every social network, every community, we want to let them the tools and the technology to manage their communities and keep them safe and make sure they can trust their platform and eventually make the world a safer place. That's step one, and it will take a village, and we're just getting started. Like after that, the sky's the limit. This technology is relevant and applicable to so many adjacent use cases. From brand protection to payments and security. But right now, my 100% focus is to build the best company in the world that can help our customers become safer and keep the integrity of their content. Have like the best team to execute on that, which is maybe 50% of the problem solving, finding like the best people that can actually execute and get get build the right product that our customers deserve, and be the company that our employees deserve and wants to work in, and basically build the best work environment for them. So while we're making the world a safer place and doing this like noble work, we're also the best company for them to work at and develop themselves and become like better versions of themselves.
For yourself, with such a huge goal, how do you stop yourself from getting overwhelmed? Because there's always going to be a million things you can do. How do you try to keep yourself from burning out?
So the fact that I'm working with people that I really love is helping because they no it's not just that I like working with them. They also can pick up where when I'm like when I need help, and they can also like keep me keep me sane. Sometimes like you're getting like too overwhelmed, and they're here to pick it up. This is one thing. Another thing is my family. spending time with my family, with my wife, with my kids is probably the most grounding in a good way thing that I have. And this is eventually what's important. So work can be overwhelmed, and you find yourself working from 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. and keep thinking about what will happen. And obviously, like any other CEO, I wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep because of this problem that by tomorrow it would look tiny, but today it's the center of my universe, and I need to figure this out. But I really do love the game. I really am determined to get to the goal, and I'm inspired by our mission and by what we're trying to do today as I were in the day we started the company. And as more time goes by and as more progress we're doing on our technology and on our customer base and the way that we're doing what we're doing, I'm even more psyched and excited by the potential of this company. And I feel very lucky. Like, I feel that we're in the right place at the right time with the right team and the right opportunity and the right market, and we're this opportunity to really make an impact on the world and change the safety and the trust and safety industry for good is giving me all the energy that I need. Not concerned about being too overwhelmed or burnt out or anything like it. I really like what I'm doing. Like, I wouldn't do anything else. I would do it for free. It's also my hobby, like doing those kind of things. So again, I'm very lucky to be in this position right now.
And that's really great to hear. Like what you said there, I think sometimes people can be so caught up in the grind and hustling when for you, the success that's coming is doing something which you love. And for so often, sometimes people forget that you can do something that means something to you. And at the same time, scale and do all the traditional markers of success that people see. And like I'm rooting for ActiveFence. Anybody that makes the internet safer is a good thing. And it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. Where can people hear more about you and hear more about ActiveFence?
So you can visit activefence.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn and reach out. I'm always answering everybody. So Noam Schwartz on LinkedIn. And, hit me up. I'm available for follow up, for any question. Always happy to help young entrepreneurs, not just young, new entrepreneurs, or anybody who needs support, or just to someone to listen. Sometimes that's everything.
Well, thank you again for coming on. Really enjoyed today.